Hello, I'm Matt Waller, Dean of the Sam M. Walton College of Business at the University of Arkansas. Thank you for joining us today for these chats with three distinguished Arkansas Business Hall of Fame honorees. I'll be your moderator for today's event, which is co-sponsored by the Walton College and the Arkansas Alumni Association. This February, we are celebrating the legacy of the Arkansas Business Hall of Fame, which was established by the Walton College in 1999 to honor and preserve the accomplishments of business leaders who are Arkansans by birth or by choice. We'll be taking questions after our guests and the students have had a chance to talk. Please use the chat function, not the Q&A function, but the chat function in Zoom to ask your questions, which we'll address at the very end. Now, let's welcome our first guest. Johnelle Hunt was inducted into the third class of the Arkansas Business Hall of Fame in 2001, along with her husband, J.B. Hunt. Together, they built J.B. Hunt Transport Services, Inc. in Lowell into a leader in logistics. I'm sorry that Mrs. Hunt couldn't be with us today as she had planned. She really wanted to, but we do have a video chat that she recorded with me late last week. I hope you enjoy the exchange as much as I did.
You know, Mrs. Hunt, you were leading in business at a time when there really weren't many women leading in business. And you were in Arkansas on top of that. What was it like to lead then?
You know, I never counted myself as a leader because he was the optimistic one, the dreamer, the one that always had the new idea, and he was going to do this and going to do that. And you know how many times I said, Johnny, how are we going to do that? How can we do that? And so I've counted myself more like it was recently quoted that I said something about, you know, he was would say that he was looking out the windshield and I was looking out the rearview mirror, and that's about the way that I've counted our life. He came up with all the ideas, and then I felt like that when after he stopped driving the truck and we started the new companies and everything, even driving the truck, I guess he was leading by going out and driving, and I was staying home taking care of the children. And it was the same way in business. I felt like that I was just doing what needed to be done. So I never thought of myself in that category as being a leader even today, because I depend on so many other people to help me make things happen that sometimes I say that it's the people that you hire and the people that surround you that make you look good, make you look like a leader, maybe.
Well, you know, Mrs. Hunt, of course, you're most known for what you did at J.B. Hunt, but you really have been involved in lots of business, Hunt Ventures, Pinnacle Hills, your community involvement, Easter Seals, March of Dimes, campaigns for the University of Arkansas, the board of UAMS Foundation, and more. So you've really been involved in lots of business. What advice do you have for young women just entering business now?
Well, I can only go back to, I guess, how I did it. And I came from a different generation than we come from now, because we do have so many women in business. But when I came into the company, you know, when I started working and everything, and of course we did have more men than women that were in the leadership place, but never did I feel like that I was any different than they were. I guess I'm a serving person, because we would have customers in and we would serve them lunch and have lunch and everything. And then when it was over, I would be the one in the kitchen washing the dishes. And I remember one time Johnny came in the kitchen and he said, our break room, our kitchen and our office, and he said, Johnelle, what are you doing? You need to be collecting money because I'm the one that collected the money. And I said, Johnny, do you see anyone else that wants to do this job? So I'm just the kind of person that whatever needs to be done. And I feel like that even today, that it's not that I feel inferior because a man is sitting over here doing something and I might be up mopping the floor if it needed to be, but that you just do what needs to be done. And it's not whether it's a man or a woman, but when you come into a company and you start working with a company, you just get in there and you do what you need to be done. And one thing that I always think of is that because starting, we started very small, and I was able to see young people just out of high school and college coming to work there. And what I've always tried to say, go out and look and find a place you think you would really like to work at. And then you apply, and if you're offered a position, even an entry level position, if you think it's a place you want to work, you take that opportunity, you take that job, and then you get in there and you show them what you can do, and you'll rise to the top, because I saw that happen over and over and over. So I feel like that as far as for these young people, so many of them want to start at the top. And sometimes it's a lot better to start at the bottom, because you'll learn a lot all the way and you'll work your way. And when we talk about Kurt Thompson, he's one of those that I hired at 19 years old, and he had to drop out of school in his sophomore year. And he came in and I interviewed him and said, come to work tomorrow. And I don't know why. You make good decisions and bad decisions. And I don't know, I can't tell you what it was about our conversation, but I'll tell you the most thing I knew is that he needed a job. And I always like to hire people that needed a job. And I knew that he did. And I told him to come to work, and who would believe that he would come to there. And now, how long has he been chairman of the company? But you talk about starting, at even the minimum wage, because that's all we could pay when you first started there. And so that's given me so much pleasure, is to watch the young people come to JB Hunt and come into the positions. And then as they rise up and I hear of a new promotion and the one that's moved up a little higher, and not too long, well, last year, because since last March, I haven't been able to go in here since COVID. But before that, when we had our big national marketing meeting, the people come from all over, all of our JB Hunt people come. And I went to that and all, and they give out all these awards. I mean, they give some big time checks out and all these awards. And as they called their names, and I'm sitting there listening, one after another, young lady got up and received one of those awards. And I was so proud of them, because I thought, look at this, what these women are doing at JB Hunt. They're all getting there, they're giving their all, and they're getting these awards. They're being rewarded now for all that they've done.
I, of course, being in academics since moving here in '94, I've known a lot of young people who have gone to work for JB Hunt and really done well. Really are some of the top leaders in the company now, and it's just amazing to see that. But that philosophy you were sharing reminds me too of just talking to Shelley Simpson quite a bit over the years. She came in a very entry-level position, and her father, I guess, gave her the advice of do the work that's put before you. Give it all you've got every day. And it really worked for her, obviously.
That's exactly been my philosophy all the way through. That's it. That's what you do. And look at where she is today. And I can name them over and over and over. And then I'm seeing all these young people that did, and they didn't necessarily have a college education. Some of them came right
Yeah.
out of high school. And now, I'll get a call and so is retiring and all that. And I'll think, wait a minute, they're too young. They can't be retiring. But then it makes me so proud to think that they came and they stayed all those years and they made the company what it is today. So these young people that stayed with the company made it what it is today and all. And now that they've reached that level, that the company has done so well that they can afford to retire and they can afford to have these nice homes. And it makes me so proud of them for coming and staying.
Well, Mrs. Hunt, of course, you've had a big impact on Northwest Arkansas and the country especially from a logistics perspective. But you also have had a huge impact in Rogers. It's really changed the dynamics of Rogers. But that's a very different kind of business to be involved in. But you seem to really enjoy it.
I do enjoy it. And it's like I never wanted to work. My 4 years of home ec, I love cooking, sewing. I like taking care of my children. I never wanted to work. And I never did. As long as Johnny was a truck driver, I didn't have to work. And when he started his own company, I went to work part-time. And I say, don't go to work for your husband part-time. It'll lead to full-time. And mine did. And so I learned by doing. I did not have the education. I did not have, I went to college 1 year and thought that if I ever did work, I'd want to be a school teacher. But mainly, I went to college 1 year waiting for him to make enough money so that we could get married. And so I did not have the education that people seem to have today to come to work for companies like this. So I just came into it in that way, and then just have gone on to these new things that I never expected to. So I even learned to keep books, which accounting and some of that, never that had to go all the way. We had other people later on, but I did in the beginning. And I worked all day and I took the books home at night and I did the journals and the journal entries and all the invoicing. I did a lot of work after the children went to bed at night because during the day I was taking orders and shipping. And then when we got in the trucking business, and I was not supposed to be a part of that when we moved here. One of the promises Johnny made me is if I would move to Northwest Arkansas, I wouldn't have to work again. And that lasted for about 4 days. And so that then when he passed away and he had all these new businesses started and he had more things, he couldn't start something fast enough, And he had started new things from Muskogee, Oklahoma to a rock quarry in Honduras to drilling rigs from Texas. And all of this was new and just beginning, but he had put so much money already into it. And I could have easily just said, let's forget all this, get rid of it. I can't do this. But I thought about, he has about 500 families out there depending on him to give him, because they had jobs. And I immediately went to work as soon as the next day or two after the funeral. I put my feet to the floor because I knew that I had to carry on what he had started. And I always say, if it hadn't been for him, we wouldn't have all this at Pinnacle Hills and Rogers and all, because I was not the starter, he was. But I was the one that tried to keep carrying on what he did start. And so I just got involved in it. And I learned, like I did from all the other things that I did through life, through the other businesses, I learned about that too. And it's kind of funny, we laugh about it because 1 year we received the honor of the developer of the year from all the contractors and all the businesses and everything. And all of a sudden I said, what? I'm a developer? I said, I thought I was a trucker. And it has been exciting. It's been the best thing for me because I had always worked. I'd had a few years of retirement, but without him, it was very, very difficult. But yet it was like every day I got up and I went to work, and I knew that I was carrying on what he would want me to do and keep it going. And I've done the best I could to just help with a lot of help. Never again. I'm not the leader always. One thing I do, I listen to all the other people. I have a good group of people working with me, and I listen to all the ideas. And then, of course, I'm the one that makes the ultimate decision, but I do listen. And there are times when I make a decision, and I think this is one thing that young people need to learn, is that it's okay to make a decision and say, yes, we're going to do it this way. And the next morning I walk in and say, no, change my mind. That's not what we're going to do. And just because you make a decision, it doesn't mean that if you decide later, I shouldn't do it that way. But I do always feel like that I make the one that's best at the time. And then if that works, good. If it doesn't, then we work it out and get through it.
Mrs. Hunt, you're in the Arkansas Business Hall of Fame. Who is in your Hall of Fame? Who do you really admire that's had a huge impact on you?
Oh, that's made me who I am today. For one thing, my parents. I had really good parents, and that very, very much encouraged their children. They never pushed us for anything. It never was demanded. I never remember my parents telling me we had to make a certain grades in school or anything like that. They were just very supportive of us. But one thing I remember my mother always told us, she said, whatever you're doing, she said, like we had plays in school and we got to be in the play and this and that. And she said, whatever you're doing, you're the best one to do it, or they would have someone else doing it. So I think I know I got encouragement from my parents. And then, of course, the other person for sure is Johnny, because without him, I wouldn't be where I am today, because I learned so much from him. And when he passed away, my whole thinking was carry on things the way he would want it done. Now, we had different ways of working. He liked starting new things, but he did not like detail. So I'm the detail person. So I'm always the one that he would come in with something and say, Johnny, what are we going to do with that? And he'd say, Johnelle, that's your problem. I found it. Now you take care of it. And that's kind of, so as I watch a new building go up or something like that we're doing, and I think he would say, okay, we're going to do this. But then if I was working with him, which I did for so long, he would come to my office and say, okay, Johnelle, so-and-so is going on. Now you go take care of it. So that's just what I keep trying to do, is follow his leadership in carrying out the things that he started. And I think he'd be pretty pleased with what we've done with what he had the vision. He knew it would look like this, and we're just making it happen.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunt, for that great conversation. Our next Hall of Fame member is Joe T. Ford. Mr. Ford was among the second class of the Arkansas Business Hall of Fame, inducted in 2000. He began his career in telecommunications at Allied Telephone Company in Little Rock, becoming Allied's president in 1977 and subsequently chairman of Alltel Corporation. He serves today as co-founder and chairman of West Rock Coffee Company in Little Rock. Mr. Ford is chatting with Colin Macias, who is currently an MBA student at the Walton College. He graduated in fall of 2020 with a degree in accounting and finance. He's from Austin, Texas, and will be working this summer at KPMG as a deal advisory intern. Welcome, Mr. Ford and Colin.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Ford. I just want to first off start and congratulate you on this achievement of yours. It's very impressive, and hopefully one day I can be in my own Hall of Fame at some point. But I wanted to start it with, what do you think are the most important things that anyone going into business needs to know?
Well, I think any business successfully is really based upon good people, operates with integrity, treat people with respect and dignity, quality products, superior service, and remember that everyone is in sales. Whether you're selling a product for the company, you're selling the capabilities of the company, or you're selling your personal abilities. Everyone is in sales, and nothing happens in a business until a sale is made. I met Jack Stevens for the first time in December of 1958. He died in 2005. My last visit with him in his last few days in his bedroom, he looked at me and he said, "Joe, most of the money I've made by betting on people." He was referring to Sam Walton, Don Tyson, J.B. Hunt, and others. In either 2000, 2001, in a meeting in New York, a friend of mine was there and was a senior officer at Walmart. And he said, "I want you to meet a young man." I said, "Okay." We did. When we got the chance after meeting the young man, my friend said, "I want you to watch him." I said, "Okay." He said, "No, I want you to pay attention to him." I said, "Okay." He said, "I don't think you hear what I'm telling you." I said, "I don't think I do either." This man was probably in his early 30s. He said, "I want you to pay attention to him because one day he will be CEO of Walmart." That young man's name was Doug McMillan. Today, he's the CEO of Walmart. Sam Walton believed in betting on people. So I cannot overstate the importance of good people at every level in any business.
Yeah, that was a awesome answer. I was curious myself. I was reading up on your biography, just whether it be on the Arkansas Business Hall of Fame video or the Wikipedia that David sent me. But I saw that you were involved with the Augusta Golf Club. How did you even go about getting involved with them? I was curious.
You are invited into that, and a man named Jack Stevens got me invited. So you might say I'm grateful to him for a lot of things.
Okay. And then as we keep going right along, so you were at first in the telecommunications business industry, and then you switched to West Rock Coffee. What prompted that? How did you decide, let's go the coffee route?
Well, let me back up a little bit and tell a longer story to get there. I spent a career in the phone business, regulated phone business. Competition came in, wireless started. Jack Stevens invited me to lunch one day. He was my largest shareholder at that time. My son Scott worked for Jack. He worked for Stevens 8 years as Jack's assistant. And Jack said, "I know Scott is a businessman better than you do. And he needs to be at Alltel." We merged and changed our name. "He needs to be a senior officer, and when you retire, he needs to replace you." I thought about that. I thought about that for a year before I approached Scott. I approached Scott about it, and he said, "Dad, we've always said we'd never work together in a public company." I said, "Business is changing. Competition is here. Wireless is coming. It takes younger minds, younger people. I'm bringing you in. You bring in the people you want." One of those people he brought in was a recent graduate of the University of Arkansas named Elizabeth Mclaughlin. Today, Elizabeth is with us. She's group president for our marketing, sales, and service to all of our customers globally. So again, it is people. We realized that as the world changed in regulation and competition, that in the wireless world, ultimately we thought there'd probably only be really 3 major companies, possibly 4. We were number 5. So we started trying to find the way to make sure that when the music stopped, we had a chair we could sit in. And we later sold that business for some $27 billion. We started helping people. My real belief in what I do is trying to improve the lives of people. And we started that in the phone business by extending into rural areas. People had no service, giving them a convenience, a way to communicate, and all those type of things. We helped employees, we helped investors improve their life by the money they made. Then Scott was helping the orphans in Rwanda following the genocide. He went down to visit. He took his 3 boys with him. And I recall him telling me that the spokesman for the orphans was a 5th grader. And he said, "Why would you come halfway around the world to see us?" And he said, "Because I'm going to make your life better than your parents' life. That's why I'm here." While he was there, President Paul Kagame of Rwanda heard about Scott, who at that time was the CEO of Altel, invited him to dinner. Scott thought it'd be a normal dinner. Instead, they spent 5 hours together talking. And President Kagame said, "Scott, what can I do to attract capital, to rebuild Rwanda, bearing in mind almost 1 million men were killed in the genocide?" Scott said, "Private property, no corruption, not even $5 at the dock." Today, you can drive around Rwanda and there are large billboards that says, "If you see corruption, call this number." President Kagame said, "Scott, I can give religious freedom, I can give political freedom. I cannot give economic freedom. And when the poorest of the poor taste the fruits of economic freedom, they'll never accept anything less. And will you be a mentor, because all our people are gone? Will you be a mentor to help me rebuild this country by teaching and showing capitalism and how it works, and help me improve the life of the poorest of the poor?" Scott said, "I will." After he sold Altel, he goes back down there. He's having a cup of coffee. He says, "This is great. Where'd it come from?" The guy he's with, originally from Texas, works with us today. He said, "Right here." He said, "Well, it's great coffee." Scott said, at that time, did not know if it grew like peanuts or pineapples. He said, "There's a bankrupt coffee mill for sale here. The banks tried to sell it twice. Nobody would buy it." Scott said, "What would it cost?" And his friend that he had met there said, "Probably $1.5 million." He said, "Tell them put it up for bids." They did. We were the high bidder. It had 400 women working there at peak season. It had no restrooms. We put in restrooms, lockers, showers, cafeteria, 1 hot meal a day free. We provide health care, retirement plan, and we put their money in the bank, direct deposit. And you say, what difference does that make? Because the 2 coffee buyers there before we showed up paid cash. That way they avoid paying about 30% in Social Security, type taxes, and others. We now have a new mill we built a couple years back, very new, modern, beautiful mill. We started buying coffee because the people there were paying less than 1/2 of the world price for market. It took us a little time, but not long, and we got it to the market price. If you go back and look at history, when there's only 2, they act like 1, and they are willing to lose 20% of their market share before they will compete and meet the market price. We got them to market price, not without some threats, but we got through it all. I can tell you stories of people we have helped. People that said, "I have electricity for the first time. I have enough money to send my children to private school." I'm going to tell you one story. There are thousands like this. I'm going to tell you the story of Emmy. Scott was in Rwanda a few years back. A local man he knows said, "I want you to meet a lady." Fine, he set a time. She wants to sell washing stations. She had 2 washing stations. Now the washing station is the first step for the crop out of the field. You just wash off the little outside paper shell with fresh water, spread it on tables, let the sun dry it. He met with a lady. She wanted to sell 2 washing stations. We buy a lot of those, but only to have a place for the farmers to take their coffee. They can't travel 100 miles. It has to be relatively near them. So we only buy it to keep a place in play that farmers can sell their coffee. He said, how much do you want for it? She said, $600,000. He said, well, we bought a lot of those, but we normally pay 30, 35,000. At this point, I need to remind you that in Rwanda, there really is no such thing as a mortgage debt. You borrow money on your plant that you have in your company. You cannot pay the debt. The lender takes the property, but the balance of the debt comes to you personally. He said, well, if you owe 600, said, how much do you owe the bank? She said, $600,000. And he said, well, there's another story, and you have to tell me the rest of the story. Here is Emmy's story. She and her husband came into Rwanda, only the clothes on their back. They stopped in a rural area trying to work. She found out that the two coffee buyers, before we show up, in Kigali, the capital, were paying more than they were paying for the coffee in the rural areas. So Emmy says to the coffee buyers, a lot of ladies are coffee growers because the men were killed off. If you will trust me, I will take your coffee to Kigali. I get the higher price if you will split that difference with me. Two ladies took her up on that. She loaded the beans on her back and she took the beans to Kigali, the capital. It's a 2-day walk. She comes back. The next time 4 women take her up on it, again, it's still a 2-day walk. As time goes by, she buys 2 petrol stations, a lot of motorbikes and all that in Vermont. She gets into the coffee business. She buys coffee at $1, it goes to $3. She could not hedge. It goes to $1.25. So she has $3 coffee for $1.25, and she owes the bank $600,000. And Scott says, I'm gonna buy your coffee washing stations. I'm gonna pay you $600,000 for them. But you have to work for me, and I'll pay you full commissions for all the coffee you bring to me. She said, no, I won't do that. I'll work for you free till you get your money back. Scott said, that may be 15 years. I'll work for you free for 15 years. First year, we had coffee coming from everywhere. We had so much coffee coming, we had to rent trucks in Kigali to take it in. We didn't have room to store it because all the farmers knew what we were trying to do. End of the second year, we had all our money back. Emmy paid off her loans. She borrowed money from us, personal money, bought more petrol stations. She is back in the coffee business. We do her hedging for her. She's not going to get caught again. Financially, she is very well off. I can promise you that, I know. She has 2 students, 2 children that are students at the University of Arkansas. One of them, Douglas, finished last year as an engineer. He works for us in our plant in North Little Rock. And her daughter is still a student at the University of Arkansas. Another farmer in Tanzania that we helped, we financed him, his co-op he operated. His name is David Robinson. Doesn't mean anything to you. But his daddy's name was Jackie. He played baseball. So we've helped a lot of people. That's what we love doing. And I love to tell you about what's come out of this conversation between Scott and President Paul Kagame. We source coffee. Let's go to this. I'm going to have a couple of slides here, take you through this. I've got people sitting by me. If I make a mistake on the machine, they fix it. And a disclaimer, just so, can you get the slides up? Traceability. We put in a system with IBM, Oracle, and others, and we have built a system that we can show, example, Walmart and Sam's, the price paid to the farmer, what it costs to export, what it costs to import, what it costs to take it across the ocean, roasting cost, package cost, delivery cost, and they can look at the name of the farmer that grew the coffee that they're selling. Before we got there, the farmers were getting less than half the market price. Today, they get market price. We wanted to know, what can we do to improve life for these people? go to the second slide, yeah. So we built an ag-right training program, and we've had 110,000 farmers come through that. If you look at the chart on the right, the yellow line is coffee price, the world price of coffee. This is a study of 1,854 farmers that completed our training program. These farmers are concentrated in a difficult growing region in Rwanda, and they experienced average baseline production below average. So you can see the impact that we're having in our training program on the revenue farmers receive compared to the world price. So what has West Rock done? This year, we expect to do $750 million in revenues. We have global manufacturing facilities in 7 locations. We sell to 300,000 retail and restaurant locations around the world. We're a supplier to 2/3 of the top 30 US restaurant brands. The average relationship with our top customers is 10 years plus. We serve 40 of the Fortune 500 companies. We have over 1,200 employees. 61% of our coffee supply is responsibly sourced, which means it's certified by the rating agencies worldwide that certify that it's responsibly grown and done right. We have digitally traced, like I showed you earlier, 4 million transactions. We have 1.5 million farmers that we buy coffee and tea from. We source our coffee from 35 countries. We sell our coffee into 52 countries. We have offices in 11 countries. And on other studies that we made across 6 countries, the farmers we deal with have increased their income by an average of 146%. Our customers in the US are asking us to go with them globally. We presently serve some of those customers in Singapore, Malaysia, Pakistan, South Korea. They've asked us, and more than one customer, to expand more in Asia. So we're building a plant in Malaysia. That plant will be in production in the 3rd quarter. They've asked us to go into the Middle East, which we plan to go into Dubai. They've asked us to expand in Europe, which we plan to go into Europe later on. We also really are the brand behind brands for others. Here's just a picture of things that we make and serve to other people that market under their name. You can also see at the bottom some of our customers, which Walmart, Amazon, McDonald's, Circle K, Dunkin', MGM Resorts, Danone, Chick-fil-A, Sam's Club, Omni Hotels, Wendy's, and that's just a small example of it. So when we look at this, the global market coming up. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, I guess I skipped one. My fault. Go to this slide. Didn't have that one. Okay, I got different slides. All right. There are 761 billion cups of coffee sold annually worldwide. We sell 6.6 billion cups of coffee worldwide into our customers. That's 1% of the world's coffee that is consumed each year. So my story is this. From that conversation President Paul Kagame had with Scott a few years back about helping the poorest of the poor taste the fruits of economic freedom. Help me rebuild this country by mentoring people in the free enterprise system. This is what we've accomplished in that period of time. Our mission is helping people. I have enjoyed improving the lives of people. We did it once before and we're doing it now. And I have to thank a group of people. Other thing, things that we've done in community that we're proud of. Here, Alltel Arena, which is now Simmons Bank Arena. We got the 2 water systems to merge together, Little Rock, North Little Rock, and develop one source of water for Central Arkansas. We built a school in Rwanda that we can accommodate up to 400 kids, I think, through the 3rd grade. We gave that to the community, but we assist the community in operating that school. That's a quick thumbnail sketch of our business. Colin,
Mr.
we have an
Ford,
office in your hometown of Austin even. Pardon me?
Mr. Ford, that is, of course, I've heard the story a few times, and I love it. Both the story of Altel, but also of Westrock Coffee, and of course, you know, traceability is one of the hottest topics right now in supply chain management, and so it's really encouraging to hear how far ahead you are of actually most suppliers in all industries. That's
We
something
have it.
we would love to talk to you more about that as well. So, but thank you so much, Mr. Ford.
Let me say one thing, if I
Sure.
could, at the end, Dean Waller, thank you. I want to express our deep appreciation to the coffee buyers at Walmart and Sam's that believed in us early, to each of our customers in the retail business that buy from us, and to each of our employees that are committed to providing quality service. We really think and we know that we're changing and improving the lives of people. I have to also thank Rennie Rutledge, First Security Bank, that loaned us money when no one else would. He took a chance. We were able to repay him, but I'm grateful for a lot of people who have helped us so that we can help others. Dean Waller, thank you. Didn't mean to take so long.
No, that was terrific, terrific. Thank you, Mr. Ford and Colin. Our next Hall of Fame honoree is Gerald Alley, a 1973 finance graduate of the University of Arkansas, who was a member of the most recent Arkansas Business Hall of Fame class. After graduating from college, he launched Conrail LP with his brother Troy Alley Jr. Conrail, headquartered in Arlington, Texas, is a diverse company providing construction, real estate, program management, and technology and innovation services to clients, and is one of the nation's largest minority-owned businesses. Mr. Alley is on my Dean's Executive Advisory Board at the Walton College as well. Talking with Mr. Alley today is Raquel Thompson, who is a sophomore in the Walton College studying marketing and business analytics and has been a business owner and DJ for almost 10 years now. She's from Bryant, Arkansas, but she and her family recently moved to Bentonville. Here are Gerald and Raquel. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Dean Waller. Mr. Alley, it is such an incredible honor to be speaking with you, and you have such an inspiring story. I'm very eager to hear the answers you have to my questions here, so I'm just going to jump right into it. As an African-American entrepreneur myself, it's very encouraging to see your success story and how Conrail has become one of the leading organizations of its kind owned by an African-American. So this brings me to realize that this was definitely not an easy feat, and it probably took a lot of hard work and discipline. So this brings me to ask you, what challenges have you overcame as an African-American business owner, and what advice do you have to aspiring minority entrepreneurs?
Thank you, Raquel. And before I get started, I want to compliment the Dean and the whole School of Business and Walton School of Business for having this event. And I'm just at awe by Ms. Hunt and Mr. Ford's story there. I can listen to Mr. Ford all day. He's very eye-opening and it's very global. And it speaks to what I consider the greater good, because business success, like most success, is measured quantitatively, but real success is measured based on how you help others. So I kept hearing from Ms. Hunt and Mr. Ford, not only their success of their business, but their real commitment to make a difference because of their success. With that, I think I want to start with the question you asked. You know, there are challenges in business regardless, being minority, non-minority, being whatever that is. Business is I'd say sometimes it's a blood sport, but it doesn't have to be, but it's a very competitive, and it requires something greater. I hear a lot of young people say, well, I want to go into business and make a lot of money. If your goal is to make money, you're not going to be successful in business. Now, nobody wants to say I'm in business to lose money because that's a hobby, but you want to be able to do better and do better for others because you're in business. So I have to come back and sort of take it down a notch a little bit. And I'm gonna start with my roots, and that roots are I came out of Pine Bluff, Arkansas. My parents had a service station business, and my father was sort of like a 1, 2, 3-person shop business. And like Ms. Hunt, my mother was I would say the public relations, the client relationships, the supporter, counting books and things of that nature. He was an auto mechanic. He took his business and he said, well, let me first rent the place, let me buy the place, let me struggle through that. But their real goal was trying to make a difference. Excuse me. Their real difference is trying to make a difference to their local community. And that was across the street from at that time was AM&N College, which is now University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, to serve the customers and the organization around that to provide services. And one of the principles that I see in that, and we've been blessed to have the education, the entrees, and the different markets that we experience today, but it really comes back down to really your commitment to go through whatever the struggles they are, because you have your focus on the outcome and the benefit of you achieving them. And a lot of times, and I think Ms. Hunt said it early on, was, if you look at it from a standpoint of real time, it may not be the right answer, but if your commitment is to do good, and it's become part of our motto, do good as you do good, and make a difference, and almost make it a commitment of making change and making a difference to make a better outcome. That long answer is to say, we started out with that background in education. My mother was a big proponent of education. My father's rule was getting up early and stay late and do the best job you could. So basically, I was the youngest of 5. And I give a lot of credit to my siblings, not only my brother, they worked with me in the business, but my others in the family that all brought assets to shape and mold my goal, or the goal of the organization, of being different, but being very open, and push those that are under you above you, because no one has all the answers. So I would say the goal and the struggles of business is paramount to say, you may not have the answer that day, but just work on it and get a good night's sleep. You may have it tomorrow, and have faith that because you're willing to work on it and because you're committed to the outcome goal that you envision, you will eventually arrive at it. Probably not on your time schedule, but on a time schedule that best fits you and best fits the outcome you're trying to achieve.
Awesome. That was a wonderful answer. Thank you for that. So just hearing you speak just now, and as I was reading up on you, I definitely realized that you are a very big champion on giving back. So I would love to hear one of the most rewarding give back moments for you.
The rewarding give back moments, and I in the struggles of business, and we were told, is that you do good and you get up early and you try to work as hard as you can. Well, it actually came with the University of Arkansas. My mother had passed in 2000. And even though we supported different organizations, I got called on by the development office. And the development office said, we tracked our alumni, which you'd like to support the scholarship programs and support the students at the University of Arkansas. And I paused there because when I went to school at the University of Arkansas, it was a whole lot different. I was in a class where there were 112 African Americans on campus and about the same number of African Americans in Northwest Arkansas. And that I came from Pine Bluff, which was probably minority African American in relationship to population. So it was a transcendent from going from a comfortable neighborhood to an uncomfortable neighborhood. And when I got there at the University of Arkansas at the age of 16, I still thought like a 16-year-old. Like my mother sort of enforced me to go there because my brother had gone there, and she felt I probably needed to be adapted to the reality of life, because the cocoon of Pine Bluff at that time was going to be different from which after I graduated would be different. So she sort of merged me into that environment. And I learned quickly that being the only one in class, being the only one in camp she would see periodically, there was a bond of, regardless of what community you came from, you're still in an environment of, I would say, of not only minority in count, but minority in exposure. So with that, going back to when I got called on in 2000 about supporting the university, I had a lot of reflections on the university, some good, some challenges, some I don't even want to discuss. But what I did come away with, if I'm going to make it better, I cannot make an opinion unless I make an investment. And I thought about my mother, who challenged me to say, you need to go there to experience that, to be challenged. And since her passing that was her legacy, she wanted all her children to go to school, because she felt, as far as African Americans, their avenue to success was through education. She was a teacher at Philander Smith, so she promoted that. So up on that conversation I had with the development officer, I said, well, I can support it, but I want to target the support and reflect on the experiences I had to help those students that, like I was some 30, 35 years ago, experienced. So based upon that, we did our first scholarship, the Endowment Scholarship, in the name of my mother, the Gladys Alley Memorial Scholarship. But, and I would say giving funds are one thing, but giving your time and attention is another. So based upon that, I really felt positive about making a contribution, but then I feel like that really wasn't enough, because, you know, as scholarships go, you get a stipend to help you meet the needs. But I think what most students, and especially students of color, need is to have connectivity, to see others who have gone through the path they've been through, and give them the belief that, well, this person wasn't all that, and they were able to make the path. It's sort of like leading the path of, if somebody made one trail, then you can make that same trail and push it further. So what I ended up doing, based on that original scholarship and based upon, we started saying not only that we should help these students, we should help students in other areas. So we went to the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff and started a scholarship there. And then we said, let's just sort of broaden that. And then my brother took the mindset, well, let's create a scholars program that would support students. And we supported it with my wife's foundation, is to sort of support African-American students and bring a forum which they can meet other African-American students and stay connected as they go through their careers. And that started the Alley Scholars Program. And I believe for us right now, we have about 18 colleges and universities throughout the country that have Alley Scholars. And it's not that they know us, is they know each other. Because it's sort of like, if you ever was a freshman at Bruff Commons, that you have your own table, and you probably can relate to that, that you have more connectivity once you interact, and once you find that whatever experience, whatever challenge you're facing, there's somebody probably across the table that experiencing the same ones. And just by the mere support of that, you are able to overcome that in a non-formal, but in an intimate type relationship with each other to face that struggle. So it's a sort of combination of my father's teaching of saying, you know, if we're helping students by providing gas money at the service station when gas was selling at 25 cents a gallon, and a student can't get home, that's helping, because that student one day may grow up to be, I don't know, president of the United States. So one of the things that we always look at is that we don't know where the success are, but we have an obligation to help others as we achieve whatever goals we achieve. And I'm proud to say that sort of legacy has been taken on by my children. My daughter, Gina, who is with the company, has taken her passion to help students, help individuals. She's very adamant in the Boys and Girls Club because it starts at an early age. And how do you build? And as far as I was really intrigued by Mr. Ford's traceability, we probably need to trace and track the growth of those individuals that we support to make sure they spread the word to others, and it becomes, I hate to use the word virus, but it becomes a connectivity of others to have an impact in raising our society. So that's a long answer to a short question.
Well, it's a great answer. So thank you for that. Lastly, I was going to ask, your business Conrail is a global organization. It has divisions spanning technology and innovation, construction, real estate, project management. So what tips or what is something that you would like to say to students who are inspired by your story and are interested in these industries?
Well, I always tell people, don't be afraid to fail. I mean, it's sort of like you got the same answer if you don't try. You know, we always ask people to say, well, I'm not ready, I'm not prepared. Well, we don't really know what your preparedness is compared to what the obstacles you're going to face. And one of the things that I think that what has led our organization, we started out, our goal was, when I started the business, was to become real estate developers. But I learned quickly, in a real estate market, you have to have capital, rich uncle, a great relationship with a banker. But the cards weren't in that. So we had to go the other route and say, what services can we provide to get entree? And that sort of spills back from Ms. Hunt's thing. What can I do with what I got to find entree to get to where I want to go? So we ended up, my background after graduating grad school was finance. So I went and started working with a nonprofit incubator facility to help small business get entree into construction. And the perils of small business and construction, particularly minority business, specifically African-American business, was the lack of the financial wherewithals and the access to capital to make entree. Not only there was the misunderstanding that because you have a certain skill set, you can drive a business. It's certain skill sets you don't have, you need to acquire, leverage, or learn to do that. So my background was finance, so I approached it from a financial viewpoint. And I went through a list of where most of them faced challenge, and it wasn't their ability to paint a room, or wire the room, or do the electrical work. It was more of how do they understand accounts payable, accounts receivable? How do they present themselves to a financial lender that would say, I would take a chance based upon whatever the financial matrix are. So I did that consulting work. And after I did it about a few years ago, we had contracts to do that. But the real change for me was a sort of reality check. Those contracts were funded by government contracts. So the change of government said there are no contracts available for that. So now we're faced with our own business. Well, what do? Well, we practice what we preach. We said, well, if we're going to start a construction business, we got a list of what doesn't work, and we tape that on the wall. This is what you don't do. So the rest of what you do, you cut out half your risk by just not doing what you shouldn't do. And we started the model of trying to create a industry attraction. And the first thing we said, you know, people are not going to entrust you to build a major project off the bat. So I sort of gravitated to, okay, how do you get a brand or identification? And it was a very simple answer. We find clients that would be receptive to give you an opportunity. And that was harder than we thought, but we did gravitate into what I call the fast food markets. We started building restaurants, and it wasn't because the structure, because the brands were McDonald's, Burger King, which were owned by Pillsbury, Food Makers, which was on Jack in the Box, the Chili's and that. not major projects, but major brands. So we established credibility that we could work for major corporations. And the first piece of equipment we bought was not a pickup truck. It was an IBM Data Master, and we said, let's do it differently. So we gravitated back to where we lacked in experience to where we had our strength in technology. So we start putting our schedules on computers early on. And we wanted to present the biggest advantage, I think, of a minority business is the false perception of when you walk through the door. You know, there's always a perception. So our goal was the perception from day one has to be contradictory to what may be the perception of people have. So we took on a very professional look, and we said, well, even though most construction companies, people don't wear ties, we said, we're going to wear ties. We're going to look totally different from your expectation of who we are. And I think that allowed us to have sort of a unique opportunity to get entrees. So as our business developed, we said, well, how do we keep evolving? Because in certain business, experience matters, but as we talked about, in this new millennial, it's not long-term experience, it's how innovative and what the market is going. So we went from construction, real estate, we tried to get all the credentials, but then as we kept looking at people, we kept saying, well, you need 20 years experience. And we said, well, really, everything is going technology. So we started a new division called Innovation Technology. And that is led by, I would say, a young African-American female with an architect degree, and also my son who's in technology, to sort of piece together the experience with innovation. And from that, we have sort of blended the experience of the old timers with the new phenomenon of the new timers, because our goal, and I believe the greatest entrepreneur I experienced was my father, with the assistance of his wife, my mother. But one of the things that I took away from that, when their time and age came about, their business dissipated. So with that, we've sort of committed to take the new leadership and move it to the next 40 years.
Well, Gerald, I put a link in the chat to the podcast interview I did of you a while back. But thank you so much for your remarks. That was tremendous. And thank you, Raquel, for interviewing Mr. Alley. You know, and thanks to all of you for attending today. With these outstanding members of the Arkansas Business Hall of Fame, this is such a great way to celebrate it without actually having it this year. And thanks again to Mrs. Hunt, Mr. Ford, Mr. Alley, for sharing your time and insights with us. And remember, this is an important point. Anyone can nominate outstanding Arkansas business leaders to be members of the Arkansas Business Hall of Fame. Just go to walton.uark.edu/ABHF to find the nomination form and criteria. And the nominations stand for 5 years. But we do need nominations, diverse nominations of successful business people. And we encourage all of you to nominate for the 2022 Hall of Fame class. Thank you again, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.